All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mohsen Omar with PoliTalk EDU. Uh, Today's episode, I'm going to have the distinct pleasure to have my colleague, Professor Quintin Babaie from the Department of Philosophy here at Northeast Lakeview College. So welcome aboard, Quintin.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. We've been really planning to do this for a while, and then we haven't
Yeah,
had that chance. It's kind of like scheduling issues and teaching classes and all that stuff. So
right.
finally, I'm very excited about having the opportunity to kind of get this one going here. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing, as I mentioned, Professor Quintin. He is he's a professor of philosophy, so we're going to be talking about kind of relating politics to philosophy. So the main reaching point will be basically philosophy of religions, and then we're going to try to relate how religions has a kind of an impact on our politics today, and then maybe from a historical standpoint, the relationship between politics and religion. Okay. So, Quentin, just get us started and give us a kind of an overview. When we say philosophy of religions, what are we talking about here?
Well, the title is a little bit misleading because philosophy of religion doesn't really have to do with religion in particular. It has to do with theology. So
Okay.
theology is the study of the possibility of God's existence or non-existence. But certainly religion is included in that, especially when we talk about it in terms of like theism, which is just the positive belief that there's a God or higher power. Um, and especially when we talk about monotheistic types of uh, ideologies. So, as far as philosophy of religion is concerned, we look at arguments pro and or for and against God's existence. But once we've established that, then we can focus on it from a religious perspective.
Okay. So again, the title is kind of misleading, right?
Yeah,
So how does that differ when we talk about polytheistic, obviously the one that believes in the existence of God? How is it, can we put them in two different categories when we're discussing the philosophy of religions in terms of monotheistic versus polytheistic? Is there any distinction in there, or how do we
of
go about it?
course. A monotheistic setup is simply a singular being that is in charge of the cosmos, that has a few characteristics or qualities that need to be met in order for that thing to count as God. Polytheistic traditions argue for the existence of multiple gods. So, um, the reason why in philosophy of religion we tend to argue for monotheistic views is not necessarily a Western bias, but it's because it's hard enough just to justify one God existing, let alone several. So there's also some logical concerns with the setup of a polytheistic tradition, like which God is superior to the others? Can there be superior gods? Like it's just a very confusing setup. So um, that's from like a philosopher, like thinking cap sort of position, right? Um, it's not really a like a practical religious perspective, right? Because of course there's philosophical traditions of polytheistic views like Hinduism, even
Mhm.
Buddhism, which well I guess maybe not Buddhism because it's not it's more of a philosophical outlook, but I do believe Buddhism is a polytheistic tradition if I'm not wrong.
It is,
Um,
yes. Mhm.
but Hinduism in particular is one of the most popular ones, and we can glean a lot from polytheistic traditions as well as monotheistic traditions.
Okay. Now, a lot of times, oftentimes, when we talk philosophy, we think of the big three, Socrates, Plato, and then Aristotle. What is there any can you take us back and then talk about their religious perspective, if there are any? Is there any indication that
Yeah,
religion was actually involved in their way of thinking in those terms?
yeah. Well, Socrates was actually persecuted for believing in gods beyond those of Athens. So back in ancient Greece, you had different gods that you were designated to pray to, right? Like in Athens, it was Athena, right? Like everyone could pray to Zeus, but really you were supposed to pray to Athena, right? Um, so his view about the soul. Back then, it was believed that when you die, your literal body just wakes up in the afterlife. That's why they put the coins on your eyes to give to the boatman to take you across the river Styx. But for Socrates, his notion of the soul was unique at the time. And it was this idea that the soul is this immortal substance that persists after death. Plato took that line of reasoning and went with the theory of the forms. So the forms are these perfect abstractions of everything that exists or that everything that could exist. So, for instance, there's a form of chair, there's a form of uh, basketball, there's a form of humans. There's a perfect version of that that exists transcendently. Transcendent just means it exists above and beyond space and time. So it's in a realm all its own. Um, and these forms are absolute perfections. And he describes the highest form, which is the form of the good. It's essentially pure perfection. And a lot of theists are very favorable to Plato's theory because it fits very nicely with a monotheistic setup. Because you just replace or you just take out one of the O's in the form of the good, and that's basically what you got. You got God. So um, Plato was a theist, um, just in a very different sense than how we understand theism to work today. Aristotle, interestingly enough, was an atheist,
Mm.
which back then was unheard of, right? Like you can get put to death, like that's considered heresy. Like you can get put to death for that. In fact, he was put on trial like Socrates, except he accepted exile, right? Like Socrates was like, look, if you're gonna charge me with this, you can kill me. I don't care, right? Um, Aristotle's like, nah, man, I'm cool. I want to live. So um, people have interpreted Aristotle as having this idea of what he calls the unmoved mover, as like his version of God, but it's really not, because the unmoved mover for Aristotle doesn't do anything, right? It's just this dormant perfection that it's what he describes it as thought thinking thought. So it's this pure abstraction of perfection. And he says it's the indirect cause of the universe. So one of the reasons why that's not God is because part of the definition of God is that he's supposed to be causal. He's supposed to be like a cosmic puppeteer of the cosmos. The unmoved mover doesn't do that. So the unmoved mover isn't really God. Also, Aristotle did believe in the notion of a soul, but he believed the soul was just a battery, that which animates us. Once the body dies, the soul dies too. So he didn't believe in an afterlife. He didn't believe in the transcendent. He only believed where you have this one physical existence and that's it. So Aristotle himself was an atheist, which is really interesting. Um, but as far as like Socrates and Plato are concerned, they were theists, just not in the sense that we understand theism to exist today.
Wow, that's really interesting. Okay. One thing I was going to ask, if we can take us back from a historical perspective, religion has been utilized and then manipulated to be
Yeah,
kind of a justification for political authority. And it's been
yeah,
done throughout history by different religions, monotheistic, polytheistic. Can you, if you don't mind, take us back to how is religion? And you can go back as far as you want to go, or you can even tackle things currently. How
right.
is religion being utilized as a justification for political authority today?
Well, I mean, look, going back to Socrates, right? Going back to ancient Greece, like the accusers of Socrates, they wanted to silence him because he was getting people to question things, especially the government. Socrates was against democracy. He thought it was a very dangerous endeavor because he believed politics was a skill and it would be like letting some random person navigate you across the ocean, right? You want a sea captain, someone that's been experienced, that's done that for years and years and years. So if we just let anyone enter the realm of politics, it can lead to this danger that you could be easily manipulated. You can be told what you want to hear, and then the person that is really just doing it for their own ends, which I may or may not say is what the current situation is, right? Um, it's problematic, right? So as far as Socrates was concerned, he was also he had a different view about the soul, about the afterlife, about the gods. So he was persecuted for that, and it's a common theme throughout history, right? Religion is weaponized. Look at the Crusades, right? The Crusades were supposed to be justified as a holy war to strike down the non-believers, right? And uh, even today, I mean, you see examples in like Saudi Arabia, right, where Sharia law takes over, and that's a direct um, sort of uh, what is the word I'm looking for? It's directly linked to the theocracy that they have, right? So religion has been politicized and weaponized throughout the history of time, and I think part of it is this animalistic nature that humans have, where we are creatures that I don't want to say we strive for conflict, but we thrive in conflict. Like if you look at all societies across the history of time, um, everywhere, right? Even the most peaceful societies, there's conflict. There has to be because not everyone's going to get along with everyone, right? Um, but especially in Western culture, right? It's all about territory. It's about dominating. It's about colonizing. Um, and throughout the history, like during the Spanish Inquisition, right? Um, you see Catholicism take over a country that was really it would for hundreds of years. Jews, Muslims, and Catholics were coexisting in a very successful, peaceful way, right? Cultures were blending, and really that unification is where societies thrive the most. It's when people introduce religion, a particular religion, that things get a little dicey. And we're
Sure.
starting to see that in our society now, right? Where you have the Christian right that's trying to take over in terms of like making this a Christian nation, which it's not. This is a nation in which you're free to be Christian, right? It's not a nation that is Christian itself because we
Right.
have so many different ideologies. We have Muslims, we have Jews, we have Hindus, we have Buddhists, we have Confucianists, we have atheists. All of those people are supposed to get along in this way that allows for the freedom to express your religious views how you want to. And the danger in turning this into a sort of theocracy, or at least a pseudo theocracy, um, can be seen throughout the history of time. Whenever societies get to that point, conflict arises, right? Like Spain in the Inquisition, like I mentioned, is a prime example of that, right? Where you have these, uh, these Catholics that are trying to take over by persecuting Jews in Spain, and then fighting with the Muslims in the south of Spain, right, in Granada. Um,
Mhm.
so it's one of those things where you're absolutely right. It's been politicized to a point where um, throughout different societies, throughout the history of time,
Sure.
people have just been
Yeah.
uh, abusing religion, weaponizing
Sure.
it, right?
Sure.
Like the Crusades is crazy to me, right? Like if you think about the concept of a holy war,
Right.
it's paradoxical in and of
Yes.
itself, right?
Right.
Like a
Yes.
holy war.
Yeah.
That's not what Christ taught. You know,
Exactly.
like Jesus was one of the best moral philosophers of all time. Regardless if you're Christian or not, we can learn a lot from Jesus. But
Which actually brings back to I think one time in 2000 campaign, they asked in the primaries for the Republicans,
Mhm,
they asked everyone, who is your favorite philosopher?
mhm,
So everybody was thinking outside the box, and then it was George Bush's turn. He was a compassionate conservative, and he thought about it, and he said Jesus
mhm,
as a philosopher. And at that time, it was very intriguing. And actually, I don't know if it was just a draw of luck. He did it as a subconscious thing that he did. But the very next day, he was just dominating the whole news. And then, is Jesus a philosopher? And everybody was talking about George Bush. I'm not saying that's why he won, but
mhm.
that was kind of like he was able to really kind of um, send
Connect
the
with
signal, send the signal to the evangelical Christians, and
yeah,
also the next day everybody was talking about him and was discussing whether Jesus was a philosopher or not. So
yeah,
so that's why you mentioned it. It's kind of like trigger that
yeah.
from that regard. So that's kind
Well,
of
yeah, I
interesting.
mean, you can't deny Jesus was a philosopher, right? I mean, like he, the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, right? Like
Sure.
that's an ethical principle.
Right.
And he was an ethicist for sure. Now, all the miracles and all the like the being the son of God and all that, that's separate, right? Like we can all learn from you can learn from a lot, right? Like you can learn from
Right.
the Quran, you can learn from the Torah, you can learn from the
Sure.
Mahabharata, right?
Sure.
So it's a matter of, you're absolutely right. Like when it
Yeah.
came um to Bush, uh he definitely played on those voters
Right.
sympathies,
Right.
especially the Christian ones, because uh in today's landscape, right? Like you can't be an atheist and
Sure.
run for office and win,
Right.
right? It's almost like everyone has to say this now, like, oh, I'm a Christian, right?
Sure.
Or
And
um,
then actually, you mentioned something interesting when you mentioned Jesus. It's different than believing in a religion. It approximates the philosophy aspect of it. Even there's a lot of misconceptions. Like for instance, Muslims, we're talking about even different branches of Christianity.
mhm.
No one argues about the existence of Jesus. They just basically the point of contention is the divinity of Jesus. Was he the son
Yeah,
of God? Was he not the son of God? Even Muslims, which many people that I found kind of intriguing, they believe that Muslims do not believe in the existence of Jesus, but actually they do.
right.
They believe of him as a prophet, not the son
Yeah,
of God. So
right.
in a continuum, let's say 1 through 10,
Yeah,
Muslims believe in everything Jesus did is just the divinity of of Jesus Christ. I mean, but they believe that he is a prophet, and then
yeah.
when Muslims refer to Jesus, they always say peace be upon him.
Hmm.
And that's a misconception. I've talked to a lot of people, and they think like Muslims are anti uh, Christians or anti Jesus, and that is
Oh, they're
not.
not.
That is not actually. It's a continuation.
Right.
And then
And
just like a lot of times, I found it kind of really intriguing of lack of people are really agnostic about how other people believe whether Jesus was divine or not. It's just kind of like funny.
right, right. And you're right. Like, and that's what I don't want to say fascinates me, but it kind of makes me mad when people weaponize religion, because especially the Abrahamic religions, they're all aimed at the same thing.
Right.
Every religion is aimed at the same thing. How can I be the best version of myself to emulate this divine being so I can be like that being, right? Does it really matter whether
Right.
it's whether you're a Sunni or a Shiite, or you're Catholic or Protestant, right? Or it shouldn't
It
matter.
shouldn't matter. It should not matter.
What
Should not.
should matter is you try to live by the morals of a good being,
Right.
right? What a good human would do. And
Yes.
if you find that through religion, great. If you don't, great. As long as you're striving to be the best person you can be. And religion is supposed to help with that. But the way people use it and abuse it, it
Right.
doesn't, right?
And then the thing is that what really is fascinating and then also very alarming when it comes to religious wars throughout history and even today is the fact when you are involved in a conflict that has some kind of religious connotations to it, you are basically playing on the fear of people. And also, what are you doing, win or lose or draw? You're always going to go back to the religion to actually
Mhm.
use that argument to help you.
Right.
If you are in a religious war and your team wins,
Yeah.
obviously you will say, "Hey, God is on my side, therefore we won."
Yeah.
So if again the other side is also they believe God is on their side, even if they lose, they would
Mhm.
say, you know, God is on our side, even though we lost, but God is testing our faith. So either way, win or lose is just gonna entice you to really believe more in the religion and then
Yeah.
the religious
It's a
war. Either
self-fulfilling
way,
prophecy.
exactly. If you win, God is on my side. If I lose, does that mean God is not on your side? No, no, no. He's testing. God is testing
Right.
my faith.
Right.
Therefore, we're gonna go at it again, and then it is a very perpetual, and it's really kind of the gift that keeps on giving,
Right.
in a very bad way. You know
Yeah, exactly.
that's how, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think yeah, absolutely. Like I don't think there should be room in a society for one religion to dominate, because when you start closing off who gets to say what and who gets to contribute intellectually, that's dangerous.
Yes,
And we've seen examples of that where it's like, if you're not this, 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 and this, then we're going to persecute you. We're going to exile you. We're going to hurt you. We're going to jail you. You can't have that. That's not how a society is supposed to function. So I think theocracies are dangerous. And especially like you're saying, like the justification is, oh, God's on our side, right? Well, it's easy to say that when you're dominating and taking over, right? It's this ethnocentric view. Ethnocentrism is an ethical theory that says um, there is an objective morality out there, but those objective standards depend on what my culture says is right. So your culture's wrong, my culture's right. That's definitely a recipe for disaster, right? Because that's what justified colonization, slavery, genocide, right? It's like, well, my culture is in the right, your culture is wrong, right? Like
Right.
when Europeans came to this country, uh, and with the Native Americans, they called them savages, right?
Right.
Even though the Incas developed brain surgery with
Sure.
just stone and wooden tools, the Mayans developed an astrological calendar that was far superior than the Julian calendar that we use. Mayans also cross-pollinated two crops to make corn, maize. Um,
Sure.
the Iroquois and the Sioux tribes developed democracy. Um, Within tribal nations, women were considered equal in
Right.
most Native American societies. So there are all these
Sure.
aspects where Native American culture was
Yeah.
actually superior in a lot of ways to
Yeah.
Western culture or European culture.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of like, well, their religious views, they were looked at as weird because they believed in animism, right? That everything has a soul and that we should treat the earth with respect and no, the land is not for sale. It doesn't
Right.
belong to anyone. We're just part of it, right?
Yes.
I
I think even
like
you go
that.
back, you go back from that time, and even afterwards, like with when Europe like pretty much colonized the whole world, and
Mhm.
at that time, and then I came across, back in my graduate school days, and it did say I came across something called the white man burden,
Mhm.
which is a religious aspect of it. It's like God created you white, and it's even though it's looked at as a privilege, but it's also a responsibility for the white man to spread kind of the wealth and then kind of like educate other societies and communities to kind of be up to par with everybody
Mhm.
else,
Mhm.
which is a really in by itself, like if you mentioned the Native Americans, do they have the right to live in their own way of without being in, like an interference from other people or people in Africa or in Asia or the Middle East, whatever the case might be? But
Mhm.
they use the religion in that aspect of it as a white man burden. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, God put me on this earth and he created me white, and that thus come the responsibility for me to basically, it's just a justification for occupying people. I
Yeah,
mean, that's how it was looked at for the longest time. How do
right.
you feel about that? Is that that's something gonna, do you have any opinion regarding that, or
Regarding what again?
the white man burden theory?
Um, so can you explain the white man burden theory
White
again?
man burden theory is like God created you white, therefore it's a responsibility for you to go and then educate other people on how to live their lives.
Yeah, that's a very Western idea,
That's a Western
right?
idea. Oh yeah,
It's a
it's a
very
Western
Western
idea.
idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And it you can still feel like that can apply today to a
Yeah,
lot of people, especially um, and not to bash conservatives, but like there are a lot of conservatives that kind of fit that mold of what you're describing, right? And it's like I have to carry on this like tradition, this legacy. Like I am burdened with the task of like being responsible for the progress that's made. And when a society cooperates, when they meld together, that's when they're at their best. Like I said in Spain, right? Like the Jews, the Muslims, and the Catholics all getting along. You had cultural thriving, um,
right.
and so I think this idea, and I know Spain is Europe and whatever, but um, I think it's a facade. Um, I think it's ridiculous. I think humans are burdened with this task of like all of us have the responsibility to try to make this world a better place than we left it.
Sure.
And so I think that idea of like the white man burden. I think it's sort of an inverted white supremacist sort of thought process, right? Like because I'm white, I'm tasked with this goal to sort of like dominate and to sort of be in charge of everything. And
Sure.
of course, not everyone thinks that way, but there's a lot of people that do, and even today. And I think that contributes a lot to this um, sort of team mentality, like my team versus your team, right? Like
Right.
I'm right, you're wrong, um, because I'm burdened with this great honor, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now we did touch base on something earlier that it's not a good idea for one religion to kind of dominate, and then kind of have all the rules and everything else, and everybody has to confine with that.
Mhm.
But do you believe that religions do have an influence on values and ethics?
Oh, for sure,
They do, right?
for sure.
So how are you going to be able to walk that line when you have multiple religions? And religions do influence values and ethics, and values and ethics should be kind of universal, but they stem out of religion. So having multiple religions in any given society, such as ours in the United States here, how are you going to be able to walk that fine line with granting that religion has an influence on values and ethics, but also how are you going to be have a universal values and ethics even though it stems from religion?
Well, see, morality doesn't stem from religion. There are moral aspects to religion, but
Okay,
the source of morality, if there is an objective morality, is not dependent on cultural constructs or religious constructs. So, what I would say to that is the way to overcome this bias towards what my religion says or what your religion says, everyone should study all religions, because the more you know about the different perspectives, first of
sure,
all, the more you're going to be aware of your beliefs, right? Because I feel like most people, when they buy into a religion, it's because they were born into it,
sure,
right? And they don't really question it because they're afraid. Because part of religion is fear driven, right? You don't
right,
believe in this, you're going to hell, right? Um, or whatever version of that. You don't believe in this, then you're going to the underworld, right? You're
sure,
doomed to Hades or whatever, right?
yeah,
So um, it's uh, it's a matter of, if we have knowledge of all these different perspectives, that will give us a more, first of all, it'll reinforce our own beliefs. It will allow us to consider perspectives we hadn't before, and
okay,
we can glean different moral aspects from different moral theories, right? So, um, even, and this can sound weird, even something like Satanism. I had a student that was a Satanist. And at first you hear that and you're like, that's scary, right? But he was describing the tenets of Satanism. And
hmm
the tenets were all like, if you see someone getting hurt, you have permission to destroy them, right? It was all about like, if they do something wrong, you can destroy them, right? But which is extreme, and it's,
hmm
violent, not necessarily good. But there were all like, all the rules and tenets were basically like ethical guidelines, right? So religion definitely has to do with morality, and there's so many different moral perspectives that you can give and take, right? And there are some conflicting ideologies within like different religions, but ultimately, like if you're more well-rounded and well-versed in different perspectives, that's going to make you a better thinker. That's going to make your beliefs more legitimate, because you'll consider the alternatives, right? Um, so yeah, it's a matter of gaining as much perspective as you can. And in doing so, we can come to a consensus as to, or we ought to be able to come to a consensus as to some of the standards that we should hold each other to, that we should follow through with, right? It's like, as a Christian in this country, right? It's getting to a point where it feels like there's this resentment towards Muslims in particular, but also Jewish people, any non-Christian, and I'm not speaking for all Christians, because obviously what we're talking about are the ones that you see
Different
in the news are
denominations, yeah, sure,
politicized, yeah.
sure.
Um, but I think when we start focusing on that, like, let's bring church into schools, right? Let's require prayer in schools. That's dangerous, because now you're getting on the territory of not just a theocracy, but like a sharpened theocracy. Um, that doesn't turn out too well for a lot of societies.
Okay. Now, since we kind of we dialed it back, we've already been at that. We're going to be at the halfway point, so we need to kind of this is really, fascinating conversation here we're having. Um, Church and state. We initially, in theory at least, we have a separation between church and state. Are we really have a total separation between church and state in the United States, or we see elements of the opposite? Or is there is the religion and politics in the United States today have an influence, and is it feasible? Is it like tangible? Do you see it?
Well, nowadays, it is getting closer to theocratic ideas, right? Um, it is absolutely supposed to be a separation of church and state. The founding fathers were adamant about that because they were aware that, like, when you have like the monarchy in England, right, where it's just, God save the queen, and it's all about, following those monarchs, right?
Sure.
They recognize that freedom, especially religious freedom, is so important to a society. And not only that, but being able to separate what's good for the masses versus what's good for this one particular group. And when we have these groups that take over, right, that diminishes our democracy, right? We're a democratic republic. So it diminishes our democratic processes. So I think there should absolutely be a difference, or like a separation of church and state, because as soon as you start incorporating church into things, into our political sphere, you're excluding other people. And that might be the goal, right? To exclude. That might be intentional. In fact, it is, right? It's it takes away from the ideals that America was built off of, right? The ideal of being free in this country. When you start leaning towards theocracy, you're leaning towards limiting people's freedom in certain ways, especially if you incorporate like religious parameters around what freedoms we have. That's also dangerous.
Right. Because people, a lot of times when we talk about, separation between church and state, but obviously when people run for office, we pretty much know where they stand on the religious standpoint, and then which group they belong to, which church they go to, how many times are they religious, are they not? I know from a like a qualification standpoint to run for office, you don't have to have a particular religion to run for office, but a lot of times there's certainly a preference in terms of how many people got elected. I mean, how many people actually feel comfortable in saying, hey, I am, kind of an atheist or agnostic or whatever religion that does not seem to be popular, and
Right,
they're going to wind up really winning major elections. It just does
right,
not happen very often. So
right.
it's a de facto rule. I mean, it's not a qualification per se, but it's also one of those things that we actually anticipate and we know is going to be happening in there. I mean, we know religion has a lot to do with the political affiliation. I mean, how you feel, which religion you belong to, is going to have an impact on you even being electable or not.
Has that, I defer to you because you would have more knowledge about this than I do, but has that always been the case in our country? Or is that just more of a 20th century type of
It's
thing?
always been that way. For instance, when John F. Kennedy ran for office and back in 1960, he was actually, it was a long shot. He was In the past, he was actually the first president to be elected who is Catholic. There's
Hmm.
other people who ran, who were Catholic, but they were never elected someone. We have something
Right.
when it comes to the presidency per se. We have something called the WASP theory, like why Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Hmm.
That is the kind of de facto, qualification that we go to. And then Joe Biden was the second, actually, only the second president who actually is a Catholic,
Hmm.
doing that. I mean, but you can remember like the whole shenanigans when Obama was running for office. It was an accusation, the way they referred to Obama even. It
Yeah.
was not even a matter of fact, like he's a Muslim. As a matter, it's like it's an accusation.
Yeah.
Oh, people go, oh, he's a secret Muslim, and he's a
Yeah.
this and that, and
Well,
obviously,
first of all, as though that's a negative,
right,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
problematic in itself.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a whole different conversation. But I'm just
Mhm.
saying. I mean, what I'm saying is the way they refer to him as he was is the fact that it was a kind of an accusation, not stating a fact.
Yeah.
Even like right now, you don't refer like even at this day and age, like with Donald Trump, for instance, even other leaders, political leaders in the United States. It depends on which news channel you're watching. You're going to see that a lot. Most of the time, when you refer to presidents, you don't refer to them you mentioning their middle name, with the exception of maybe Bush, because we have two Bush presidents. You say George
Hmm.
H.W. Bush or George W. Bush.
Uh-huh.
But Obama often referred to as Barack Hussein Obama. They're gonna stress out the fact that he was a Barack Hussein Obama. Okay,
Right.
I've never heard Donald Trump refer to President Clinton as William Jefferson Clinton.
Right.
He never talks about him that way. He probably doesn't know half the middle name for multiple presidents. But when it comes to
Right.
Obama, he always manages to mention his middle name. And then I don't. It's just kind of interesting. Maybe he's sending a signal to the constituency or sending a signal like, oh, this guy is different,
Well, there's definitely racist overtones to that for sure, because, it's like Obama was the first African American president that we had. And even though he was half white,
Yes,
people focused only on the African American part. And
right.
um, he got so much flack. I mean, he was uh, constantly being uh,
Even when he was born,
undermined.
was he born in Hawaii? He was born
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Kenya. He
like
was born
that.
in Kansas.
Yeah,
He lived in Indonesia. I mean, there was a lot of like really, really kind of starting a lot of conversation about his upbringing, where he was born, and his affiliation, and also his allegiance
yeah. And
as someone who actually lived
he's the
there.
only person in the history of this country that has had those accusations, I'm assuming,
Right.
right? Like no one ever looked at William H. McKinley and was like, "Oh, this guy's,
Yes.
he's actually a Buddhist," right? Like,
Birth
no.
certificate, I need to
Yeah,
produce.
exactly. Where's
Yeah.
his birth certificate? No, no
Right.
one ever questioned that. So it just so happens that this one guy that happens to be different, we're to question his legitimacy, right? And like you said, it is this idea of like questioning the legitimacy of a president by saying, "Oh, they're Muslim." Like
Right.
that is really messed up because
Yeah.
so what if he is Muslim,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he says he's Christian. Cool. If he was Muslim, cool, right? But I think you have a point, and that's interesting. Like what I'm saying is like back in the 1800s, right? Was religion as big of an issue to your awareness?
No. No, it was not as big. It was not as big because the country at that time, it was not as basically um, heterogeneous as it is today
Hmm.
from a religious standpoint. It was
Gotcha.
like not it was not a lot of pluralism when it comes to religion. So I don't think it was always been there. It's always, but it's not as apparent as it is today,
Gotcha.
from a historical standpoint. Now
Okay.
let me just kind of like pick your brain on this,
Yeah.
Quentin. When political leaders they examine the fact that Obama is whatever religion he is, and they try to create doubts and everything else. Do you think politicians here the reason they mention that in there because they know that's a rich area for the constituency to actually aspire them, or is the people there they're driving the politicians? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like that
I'm
when
not sure what you're saying.
like when if the when the politicians actually use this kind of language, Do they know that there's a lot of room for them to capture the imagination of of a particular constituency, or the constituency is in existence and then the politicians are just kind of like there to inspire them, or they actually just to follow? Who's following whom here? Do we have people feeling these things and then the politicians are using that, or is the politician making an awareness about this? Like which one
I
is
think
first?
that's a good question. I think it just depends. I think, like when you look at Trump, I think he creates narratives that his
Okay,
constituents
that's
buy
that's that's
into,
the what I was getting at. Yes.
right? But I think someone like George W. Bush was echoing the sentiments of his constituents, right?
I
And
see.
talking about Jesus being his favorite
Philosophy.
philosopher, right?
Hmm.
Like that plays well with that audience. So you can see how in certain instances, like you're driven by what your constituents want, but at the same time, you have these figures that set the standard, right? And Trump is definitely one of those people, I think, that sets the standard for his constituents to follow, right? And in this day of social media and misinformation, it's really easy to create narratives because you're the way social media spreads information or misinformation like wildfire, it's hard to contain once it's out there. And it's hard to make people, especially when you pitch ideas that they're favorable towards, that they're sympathetic towards. Um, it definitely lends itself to um, some of the mess we're in right now, right? Where it's this team mentality of like us versus you, right? Whether you're liberal or conservative or you're religious or an atheist, right? It's all about my team and what my team says. And there are talking points within those bubbles, but there are also things that emerge from politicians creating narratives, like when Trump talks about uh, Mexicans coming into this country are rapists and criminals, and it's like no, it's just not true, right? But then you get the narrative that his base is, oh, we got to get rid of these illegal immigrants because they're rapists and murderers, right? It's like
Yeah,
we see,
he creates the talking points.
right,
And then people's like, hey, that sounds good. That sounds about right. And then they kind of just do not. A lot of times, people actually just start saying things that some politicians said, and it really sounded good.
right,
And then they do not go put any kind of effort in fact checking. Is this
hmm
true or not? Is this impacting me? Yes or no?
hmm
And then they just kind of like, okay, that sounds really good. And then they gonna it becomes their own. They're living in their
narrative,
own bubble.
yeah,
It becomes their own kind of creating their own reality,
hmm
and it's really detached oftentimes from the
yeah,
actual reality of the
for
situation.
sure,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That is so at the way we're going. No, right now you said like Trump, and Trumpism and then all that stuff happening. Is this phenomenon gonna go away after let's say with Trump, let's say in 2028, at least in theory, he is gonna be not involved in politics anymore. Do you think the stuff that he already created, uh, is it gonna go away with him not being the president anymore, or he created
no,
something that is gonna stay for a long, long time?
no, it's not going away, um, and it's kind of scary to think about that because his views are pretty extreme with this Project 2025 stuff, which he during his campaign denied, but now he's embracing it.
Right.
But this trend didn't start with Trump. This
Hmm.
trend kind of started with uh, the Tea Party, right?
Sure. Back in
Um,
2009 and Ted Cruz and yes, sure,
right.
absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and it's there's this shift towards social conservatism that has become pretty extreme, I think. Um, just like social liberalism has also gotten
Sure.
pretty extreme. Like both
Yeah.
sides seem to be moving away from center towards these
Absolutely.
extreme sides.
Yeah.
And the people in the center, which is most of us,
Yeah.
um, are kind of in the middle, like, what are we doing? Right? Like, so I
Which team
don't
do we
think
play for? We don't have a team to play for, pretty much.
exactly. And it's like there's a lot of, well, let me just side with this side or this side because those are our only options, right?
Right.
But as far as like the impact that Trump's making with sort of the boldness of people just coming out and having these kind of extreme ideas towards people like after 9/11, right? There was a huge like wave of people that were spreading anti-Muslim, anti-Middle Eastern type of sentiments. And that started to go away over time, but it's still prevalent. I mean, you still have people that associate Islam with terrorism,
Sure.
and that's just not true, right?
Right. Right.
And then you have, you know, people that uh, support some of what Trump is saying. I'm not trying to take a crap on Trump, right? I'm just saying, like, I've never seen in my lifetime this extreme of polarity between parties.
Right.
And I think Trump is a catalyst. I don't think he's the originator, but he is a catalyst for it. Um, and I think
He's definitely utilizing that. He's definitely using
yes,
that for his advantage, for sure.
yes. And it's, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think because these people have been given a platform, and I'm not trying to say conservatives are bad. I'm not trying to say like Republicans are bad. I'm just saying a lot of his base, maybe not even a lot, but a chunk of his
Good
base
chunk, yes.
has these extreme views, um, where it's like we got to kick out the Mexicans, we got to get rid of Muslims, we got to, you know, send women back to the kitchen sort of thing, right? It's like these extreme types of ideologies that are like from a far away era, right? And
Do you
it,
also see, do you also equate, let's say, you did mention earlier, like we have a lot of age of polarization right now. We got the extreme right, extreme left.
yeah.
What about the extreme left? What do you, I mean, a lot of times people say, I mean, what is their
Oh, it's
disposition
gotten
regarding?
so out of hand with some of
Yeah.
what's the big reason why I think the Democratic Party is in disarray is because they're focusing on the wrong things,
Right.
right? It's about like trans rights, like that's something that we should focus on. But getting to these extremes where it's like you can't say anything at all ever, like you if you misgender me or if you don't use the right pronouns with me, then you're an evil person, right? Like that's insane, right? Like that's way too extreme. There's also these, you know, types of ideologies on the left, like in California, where it's like shoplifting is legal, in
Right.
like San Francisco.
Sure.
Like that to me, that's insane,
Right.
right? Like that I don't get that, right? So there's lots of examples where the left is focusing too much on the wrong things. They're not talking about the economy enough. They're not talking about healthcare enough. They're not talking about the cost of living, right? They're focusing on the wrong things. Now, you have people like Bernie Sanders that are talking about those things, right? But there's no way in hell Bernie's ever getting elected, right?
Sure.
First of all, it's because he considers himself a socialist, which people don't really understand what that means. So they hear it and they're like, oh, communist, but it's not the same thing, right?
Sure.
Um, and with Bernie Sanders, like his ideas are fantastic. The problem is how do we execute them, right?
Sure.
Like I don't think there's ever going to be a possibility where we enact his vision for the country. Um, so yeah, I think all these people on the left too, man. Like eh, I only bring up the conservatives and Trump because that is so prevalent right now because he is
Right.
in
Right.
power.
Sure. Sure.
But
And it
when
seems like
Biden,
on the extreme left as well, from my vantage point, when I see people talking, it seems like the left or the extreme left is acceptance of everyone's opinion, and anything is okay, and we're gonna embrace it and make it like the focal point.
yeah,
But they're also not very tolerant of conservatives.
yes, that's the thing too. That's
And
what I'm
it's like you
saying.
tolerate everything,
Yeah, not
but
conservatives.
the conservatives. Why are you stopping here? I mean, it just kind of like it creates this rift between the extreme right and the extreme left. You're tolerant, and that's your whole message is
Right.
tolerance, but you stop short of tolerating the other side,
Yeah, it's
which they
hypocritical.
are the one that you need to have the most conversation with because they are the one on the other side.
Yeah, it's gotten to this point. That's a great point that you bring up. It's gotten to this place where um, both sides are like, you have people that are just unwilling to compromise on anything. And what exactly what you said, right? Like it's all about tolerance on the left, except when it comes to conservatives, right? And that's also stupid because it's just you, you're not going to agree with everyone.
Sure,
There's always going to be differences of ideologies. But what a society does that thrives is you have to live magnanimously in those situations where you might not agree with anything this person says,
sure,
but you have to respect them. You have to have
absolutely,
tolerance for their beliefs. Now, you don't have to accept their beliefs, but you have to know, especially in this country where we have freedom of expression, freedom of speech, we're supposed to have freedom of expression, freedom of speech, but we ultimately, it, we're not using it the way we should. We're not using it like we're using freedom of speech to say, I can say whatever I want to say, but if you say something that I don't agree with, you're wrong, and I'm going to silence you. That is
sure,
also cancel culture, right? Like
right,
that's the thing that liberals focus on that I think is too extreme, right? The whole purpose of cancel culture was to point out injustices and accountability for people, which I agree with. But then it got to this point where it's like, if you say anything wrong, or if you've ever said anything wrong, you're done. We're getting rid of you, right? You're out. That's extreme. Why can't we say people grow, people learn, or like we can hold people accountable, but we don't have to destroy them to do that. So there's a mess on both sides of the aisle, and it's going to take a centrist type of mentality that says, look, I don't agree with a lot of what you say, but I'm going to work with you because that's the only way we can progress. So,
yeah, yeah. Now, one thing we I know we have time restraints and we gotta get going about 10 minutes or so. Um, how do we at the based on the client, the climate that we have, the political climate we are having today, how can we ensure minority rights within this kind of religious, I don't know, connotations? I mean, the religious kind of like belief
yeah,
it is certainly a dominant, religions right now. How can we ensure minority rights within these contexts?
it's a good question because, well, in my opinion, the resolution for that is moving away from theocracy. Because when we start incorporating like, well, women shouldn't have the right to an abortion because it's unchristian or it's religiously wrong, right? Or it's just morally wrong, right? Well, the reason why women have abortions is not always because just as a contraceptive, right? There's medical reasons. There's quality of life reasons. There's incest and rape reasons. Like there's lots of reasons why that Roe v. Wade was what it is,
Right.
or was what it was.
Was, yes,
Um,
okay.
but focusing on religion to guide political um, action is tremendously dangerous because we look at our society and how it's constructed today, and it's hard for anyone that doesn't fit that mold of who's in charge, right? Whether it's a conservative or a liberal, right? Those are the dominant. Like when Biden was in office, right? There were, I mean, there was still this like huge chunk of the country that was conservative, but when Biden took over, it was like, okay, so now the left has more of a voice. So let's impose some of those things that the left wants to impose,
Sure.
right? And it's like Democrats have typically always been the party of promoting minority rights, but they haven't been doing a good job in the last decade because clearly there's a huge population that didn't come out to support Kamala Harris, that didn't come out to support Hillary Clinton. And it, like, I have the belief that both Harris and Clinton would have promoted minority rights,
Right.
but they never got a chance to. And because of that, we have like Biden didn't do a good job either of promoting minority rights, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I really don't have a resolution for that. I really don't
Okay.
know how
Now,
we.
one thing I've been having this conversation with a lot of people, colleagues, and we bring it up in our classrooms and everything else. There's one thing sacred about, our universe. We live in a bubble, and we still, luckily, until now, we have the chance to have exercise academic freedoms and talk
Mhm,
about things in the purest form. In the case of Kamala Harris, and then more particularly Kamala Harris, and also Hillary Clinton to a certain degree. A lot of times I've had this conversation with many people. It's like if you have not voted for Hillary for either one, and you're not a conservative person, that means you did not vote for them because they're women. There's
mhm,
a misogyny involved and all that stuff. And then I have to push back a little bit on that one. Maybe were they the greatest candidates? I mean, maybe some people they felt kind of funny not voting for either one of them. More
mhm,
particularly Kamala Harris because she's the latest one we had is the fact that she was the way she was presented. She did not win a primary. She did not do very well, particularly in 2020. She only
mhm.
had 107 days to kind of prepare.
Yeah,
And then if I do not like Trump and I didn't vote for her, does that mean there's a misogyny involved, or maybe she was not the best candidate?
right.
I mean, so what's your thought on that? Is it
Well, I definitely think there is an element of misogyny that went into people not voting for them, but that wasn't the majority of why they lost.
okay?
I think the majority of why they lost was because they weren't speaking to people. I think Hillary really screwed herself when she said basket of deplorables.
Deplorables,
Right?
yes,
She just
yes,
alienated a huge chunk of the country by doing that.
absolutely,
So she shot
absolutely.
herself in the foot.
Oh yeah,
With
there's
Harris,
about 25-30% of the people that voted for Hillary Clinton voted against her is because they don't like her.
right,
They voted for Trump. They kind of like, okay, I wasn't gonna participate. I don't like Trump, but I do not like Hillary more. So
right,
the lesser of the two evils kind of
right.
argument. And then the same goes also for Trump. There's a lot of people that voted for Hillary that they
Because
didn't
they
vote
didn't like
because of
Trump.
Trump. Yeah, because
Right,
she's not Trump. That's basically
right.
why.
Because
Which is a
really,
horrible way to vote, you know?
right, it really is. Because honestly, both of those candidates I thought sucked. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yes.
So I didn't. And then with Harris, I think her biggest problem was she flip-flopped a lot,
Right.
and that got people. And she was also coming off of an administration with Biden. And
Right.
when she was asked, "What would you have done differently?" she said nothing. And I think that was disingenuous because there's a lot of stuff that Biden should have done that he didn't. And there's a lot
Right.
of stuff that
Yeah.
he did that he should have done differently.
Sure. Sure.
And I think with Harris, I think people just saw her as a continuation of that. And because the country is in disarray, because the country is in this sort of like uh, really like toxic situation, I think that um, she didn't get she probably didn't get a fair shake, but even if she did get a fair shake, I think the messages were lost on them because they're just like, you know
Right.
what, let's move on, let's get back to where we were when Trump was elected, um, which I don't know if it was any better, honestly.
Right. And at this point, honestly, we can play the hypotheticals, all day
Yeah.
long. I mean, what did she would have done okay, or did she have not done okay? I mean, I think what happened is she's trying to be loyal because if it wasn't for Biden, she would not have been able to kind of get to the top of the
Hmm.
pack that soon because she was kind of be handed the whole thing at
Hmm.
that particular time. And then 4 years earlier, she ran against Biden, and she
Hmm.
was one of his biggest critics
Yeah.
at that time. And she's one of the first people to actually to drop out of the race in 2020. So in
Mm.
hindsight, 2020, getting back,
Yeah.
we don't really know exactly how if she would have been the nominee for the party or not.
Mm.
Having let's say if Biden early on he said, I'm not going to run for re-election, and he's going to have the primary wide open. We don't know exactly if she would have been at the top of that ticket.
Right.
There's no way to find out. There's really no way to find out. And right now, people are saying like today, she has not closed the door on the possibility of her running again. So we'll see. I mean, it's kind of like a lot of moving parts, and
Yeah.
we'll see how that's going to shake at the end. But it's always fascinating to kind of in politics, we often we become experts on the what ifs, the
Yeah.
what if. But in true fashion, we have no idea exactly how things would have played, knowing what we
Right.
know today. In hindsight, 2020, we really have no
Right.
idea. Okay, one thing we're going to talk about will be the kind of like toward the end. We're going to be shifting gears and talking about things a little bit differently,
Okay.
linking there's an election going on in our city coming up next Tuesday actually.
Hmm.
There's the constitutional amendments, and also there's about 17 of them, and we have Proposition A and B, which involves building an arena for the San Antonio Spurs. And then for those listeners that maybe you don't know, Quentin and I were big huge Spurs fans.
Yeah.
So I want you to really kind of look at it from a political standpoint, building the arena for the Spurs,
Yeah.
and also from the possibility, if we don't build the arena, the possibility of the Spurs not being in town at some point, maybe if they don't get what they want. What's your take on the Proposition A and B, and also talk about that San Antonio Spurs for a little bit, and Wembenyama, which is he's really
First
doing
of all,
great.
I could
Yes,
talk for hours and hours and hours about the
I know
Spurs.
we will do an
Yeah.
episode just regarding that,
I would,
for sure.
I'd be down for that.
Absolutely.
Second of all, you shut your mouth when you say that the Spurs are going to relocate. They're never going to go away from San Antonio, right? Um, I think they're going to incorporate things with Austin, and they already have. Like they play a couple of games there every year. Their G League team plays in
Sure.
Austin.
Hmm.
I think Proposition A and B are great. I think they're going to be great for our city. I think Wembanyama is, and I think it's because of Wembanyama. I think building a new stadium is going to draw a lot of people from out of town to San Antonio because they're going to be like, I want to see Wemby, I want to see this new stadium, I want to experience downtown San Antonio. And the thing that sold me on Prop A and B, and like uh, I'm just from what I hear, right? It's not going to come out of taxpayers' dollars. That's the
Hmm.
biggest selling point for me.
Sure.
That it's going to come out of tourist revenue, which is fine, right? I think that's fair. Um, but in terms of the Spurs, like Wembanyama is so transcendently good that first of all, we're going to win championships, plural, with Wembanyama. That's just inevitable. That's
Right.
inevitable.
If he stays
Um,
healthy, the sky is the limit, to be
Sky's
honest.
the limit for this guy,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
And
He's in a league by himself right now.
yes, people are talking right now. Everyone's talking about Wemby, and they're saying, could he be the greatest of all time at some point? If he stays healthy, and if he continues to play the way he's playing, I believe he will be the greatest player of all time. He's going to need a 15 to 18-year career. He's going
Right.
to need to win at least 4 to 5 championships. Do I think he can do it? 100%, especially with the supporting cast that we're giving him with Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox, even guys like Jeremy Sohan and Keldon Johnson. They're
Sure.
contributing really positive. I mean, Sohan hasn't
Absolutely.
played this year, but um,
And also the fact that down the line, when the salary cap kicks in, he's going to be a major attraction for people playing with him. Hey, people like maybe an established players, and somebody going to come in. Hey, I want to end my career with him,
well,
to have a
yeah,
possibility, kind of like what Drexler did with Houston, and he played with
yeah,
Hakeem the last couple of years, and he wound up getting
yeah.
a championship in there. So that's going to be a major attraction
Oh, for
regarding that as
sure.
well. Yes, absolutely,
For
absolutely.
sure, the Spurs are going to be a destination for people to go because there's not a lot of distractions. It's all about basketball. And absolutely, I think, you know, we had we have the opportunity. Oh, De'Aaron Fox, he forced his way out of Sacramento to come here, right? So
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
people are going to want to play with Wemby. Like he's going to be like who wouldn't want to play with Jordan? You know
Yes,
what I mean?
absolutely,
Like
absolutely.
he's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Jordan.
Yes,
And
yes.
he could honestly be better than Tim Duncan. And I never thought I would say anyone would be better than Tim Duncan, but
Yes.
like he's already turning into like an ultra mega star. And the difference between Wemby and Timmy is that Timmy never had the spotlight. He didn't want the spotlight.
Sure.
Wemby does.
He does. Yeah, you're right.
Wemby
Yeah.
is a
He has a lot
character.
more personality. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
You train him with the Shaolin monks. Like,
Exactly. And also the last summer, I kind of like stumbled on an article that he actually played, went to Houston and spent some time with Hakeem and his
Olajuwon,
academy,
yeah.
in the academy.
And
And
you
then
can
that's,
see
and
it.
you can see it. You can see it. Like right now, I'm seeing, like right now when I'm seeing him play.
Yeah.
And
And the creep
this
shake.
is for those of you who are tuning in, this is it's not almost not the same episode as the one we started. We're talking about religion and politics. That's the kind of kind of
The
refreshing.
Spurs are my religion.
Here you go. Here, it is a religion, right? Approximate to a religion, yeah. So to me, I'm seeing like there's a little bit of Duncan in there. There's a little bit of George Gervin in there. There's a little bit of Hakeem, like the footwork and
Yeah.
everything else. So this guy is the real deal, you know.
He's like I've been following Wemby since he was 16. I love scouting and I love like
And and also San Antonio is his favorite team. So kind of like to him,
you grew up a
I've
Spurs
seen him
fan
like
because of
yes,
Tony.
because Tony Parker, yes,
And that
exactly.
was, dude, I was talking about this guy so much. My dad was like, shut up, dude. Like, first of all, we're never going to get him because we're never going to be bad enough to get him. And I was like,
Hold on a
maybe
second, we
not.
can.
We
Yes,
need to
we
start trading off pieces. This was like in
exactly,
2019, right?
exactly.
And so I started seeing like I saw him grow and grow, and I started watching him play in France, and I was like, if this dude puts on some weight, no one's going to be able to stop him. And
Right.
he's put on 35 pounds or 30 pounds since he's been in the league in muscle. Like
Yes.
he's bullying people this year. Like
Yes,
the
absolutely.
first game, he dropped 40, 15, and 3 blocks.
Yes.
And he did that against Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis is a top 3 defender in the world.
Right.
And he made him look like a kid. He punked him. He bullied him.
Exactly.
He got
Exactly.
everything he
And I
wanted
think
from him.
isn't Davis, he's the one he said we should have a cap on how tall people have to be in the
Yeah,
NBA.
exactly. Yeah,
Maybe it
because
was I don't know if he said that or not, but I saw that
I don't know
on
if it was him,
somewhere.
but I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like,
and
hey,
that's I mean that's funny because
and
Wemby,
that's coming from a 7 footer, you know.
yes, but
Davis is a 7 footer,
it's funny because Wemby's listed at 7'5". He's really like 7'7", man. I really
Yes,
believe
yes,
he's closer to 7'7" because
yes. The wingspan and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely,
he
absolutely.
he doesn't he's hard to believe he's real because he moves like a guard. Like I don't know if you saw the most recent game against the Raptors,
I saw
but
highlights. Yeah,
he got the rebound, puts it behind his back, puts it between his legs, and puts it behind his back again.
yeah, I saw that. I saw that movie. Yeah, that
God,
was
and
amazing.
then he
Yeah,
does this like 360 layup thing.
yeah,
Jesus, man, he's
it's
just
amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
truly unbelievable. Truly
Absolutely.
unbelievable. And I'm so excited.
We could really talk about it. We can designate a whole episode regarding
I think we should.
who's the greatest Spur of all time.
I think we should.
We should at some point. We will do that soon. But Quentin, I really would like to. It's coming on about an hour and almost 15 minutes.
Okay.
It's been fun. It's been overdue because we've been talking about this for a long time.
Right.
I learned a lot, and then I really had a great time. And I hopefully we have the audience will actually echo some of us. We have some students in common probably going to be listening to this, or whoever is willing to listen and tolerate
Okay.
this. And it's really great. And I had a great time. And honestly, I would look forward to having you on in the near future, discussing politics, religion, and then even sports.
Basketball. Yeah.
Basketball. We can have a whole episode just
Awesome.
basketball. PoliTalk Sports Edition. Okay,
Yeah,
Spurs
yeah, yeah.
Edition. Yeah, we can do
Yeah.
that.
Well, thank you for
So
having me on. I really
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And this will be actually be airing soon enough for me, hopefully either today or tomorrow.
Okay.
So by the time people listen to it, it will be already aired. So again, I will do my best to kind of get it done today. If not, then by tomorrow. And I will, again, it's been a pleasure, and I really thank you so much, Quentin.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Take care.
Thank you.